K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we're expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at advertise@k98talk.org. The leader in talk radio on the Internet, right here on K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network.
This country called the USA, and we fly our flag because we're proud and free, we're Americans. Red, white, and blue is our way of life. Never back down from a challenge or a fight. Nature provides, God gives the rights, we're Americans. We fish the waters and we hunt the lands. We forge the steel with our own two hands. With what we've got, we do the best we can, we're Americans.
You are now tuned in to the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show, right here on the all-new K98 Talk.
Good evening, everybody. Let me get one for me. And let me get one for my friend who I am still supporting. And we are glad you are with us tonight here, joining the G Nation live on K98 Talk. Rowdy Rick and Bill ran a little bit long, but we're going to forgive him because Bill's so damn smart, he just needs the time. You can catch Rowdy Rick every night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time on K98Talk.com. That's Monday through Friday. And we're going to get this show right off with a bang. We have got Jody with us from the Red Wine, and we also have Steve with us who produces the Red Wine. And we're going to discuss this Confederate flag flap crap going on because we've got three different points of view here, and I think they're all very interesting and all very valid. So, guys, welcome into the show, first of all. Great to have you both on.
Hello.
There you are. and Steve's here too, right?
I'm right here. How you doing?
Okay, doing great. Glad you guys are here. So everybody knows what's going on with the Confederate flag and this Confederate battle flag. Let's go ahead and get the history right on it first. It was never the flag of the Confederacy, as some people are claiming, but we each have our own viewpoints. None of the three of us line up idyllically with one another. So I wanted to have this little round robin and kick it around and see where we fall into what's going on around us in the country on this. You guys know that there are now more retailers that have joined in pulling Confederate battle flag merchandise. Sears and Kmart have joined eBay, Amazon, and whoever the hell else it was. I forget who it was now.
Walmart.
But yeah, jump in. Come on, guys. Don't hold back on me.
Walmart, wasn't it?
Walmart. Thank you.
Did you say Walmart?
So let's go ahead. Jody jumps in. Let's start with Jody. Your feelings on this, Jody?
Well, I posted the question on Facebook the other day and on Twitter asking, was Nikki Haley right in saying she wanted to lower the flag? And I felt that she was. Based on what the Senator Tim Scott said, what different people were saying in her state, I realized that a flag does not represent, it's not a panacea for fixing racism. I get all that. It was just a symbolic gesture on her part for her to basically tell the African American community that she heard them. They were grieving and she heard them. And so I said initially, I don't see anything wrong with it. And Steve and I started arguing because he said, well, it leads to the next thing. And I really didn't see it. But, man, the last couple days, I am shocked. I'm completely shocked. People wanting to change parks and streets and school names, the Air Force bases, some talk on changing certain bases. I mean, I had no idea. I had to say to him out loud on Twitter, I tweeted out to him, you were right, I was wrong. I had no idea it would have this trickle-down effect.
Yes, ma'am.
I have that one
It does. Jump in, Steve. Come on.
I don't know. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. It seems to have a little delay. Yeah, I mean, kind of with Jody, I'll be honest with you. When I first saw this, I kind of stayed out of the fray a little bit. My initial reaction was, okay, D-Ray goes down, or however you say his name. I don't really care. Goes down to Charleston, gets frustrated that he finds a bunch of people praying rather than, rioting in the streets. Puts that tweet out there, which I think a lot of people have seen now, where he basically goes, oh, and hey, look at all these statues and flags and street names everywhere. And that really kicked it off. He basically said, hey, I'm not going to get a riot, so I'm gonna find something else that people are going to start protesting over. And guess what we're not talking about anymore? We're not talking about people praying together in Charleston any longer. We're talking about, as Jody said, we're talking about flags. We're talking about school names. We're talking about street names and statues. We're talking about moving a race. People asked the governor here in Virginia to move the race. There's a big international bicycle race that's going to be here this fall, like the biggest thing that's ever happened in Richmond, I guess. It goes down something that's called Monument Avenue. On that avenue are monuments of Lee, Jackson, Jeb Stuart. There's a monument to Davis, although it's not actually got a statue of him there. And people are asking them to move the race so that we're not embarrassed in front of the rest of the world. And at the point where, to me, that it really kind of changed in my mind was, okay, the flag, there's the potential for the flag to come down in South Carolina at any point. I obviously remember what happened in 2000 and, where that all came from, so the negotiation between the NAACP and the state and that sort of thing. So I remember all that happening, and I thought, okay, all right, fine. If there's a kind of a reconciliation issue or something like that that people want to address, and that flag may eventually come down or something, okay, but do it the right way. Don't do it as a knee-jerk reaction. Don't do it as, almost sort of being threatened into it. Don't be, I guess, feel like, every Republican's got to jump on board with this. But I said, okay, I'll just kind of sit back and see what happens with that. The fervor will die down, and maybe they'll take the flag down, maybe they won't. But it's totally changed, and it's driven a division even within the Conservative Party, Republican Party, with conservatives, libertarians, whatever you want to call it, in that you've got conservatives that are from, up north, attacking, conservatives from down south, conservatives from down south, going, you have absolutely no clue where we're coming from, stop calling us, racist, stop calling us treasonous, all this other kind of stuff. And it's driven a wedge in there now. And I don't know how America is. People are very fickle here. The next big story comes along and this will get dropped. But it has certainly, I've got one girl out on Facebook today that blocked me because I said something about, why the flag had actually flown over the state of South Carolina Capitol in the first place 53 years ago. So I think that's the problem we've got to deal with now is how do we get back around this junk that's happened and get back on track with where we need to be.
It's a great question. What do you see there, Jody?
Well, I can understand where Steve is coming from. We had this discussion earlier today on how we were raised with completely different. We come from a different paradigms, actually, and I think that's what's happening across the United States. You have people looking at it. I asked my son before I came on. He's 20 years old. What do you think when you see the Confederate flag? And he said racism. That's the first thing that popped into his head. I think based on which state you're from, based on where you are and who and what school you went to, I think you had a completely different take on what the Civil War meant and what the flag means. And earlier today, I saw a tweet by a black conservative. He is on the Blaze, and he had a great point of, listen, all these people saying, yeah, but it doesn't mean that, but it doesn't mean that. They're not listening to his community. They're not listening to him, because when he sees it, it causes him pain. He says it causes me pain. Another individual chimed in on his Twitter page and said, I agree. I see red when I see that flag.
Okay.
To me, that's all that Nikki Haley was responding to. She was simply responding to that. I don't think Nikki Haley, and I don't think the majority of Americans thought that would lead to, quote unquote, banning it, where Amazon and Walmart and different places would jump on the wagon and say, we need to get rid of this, while still selling ISIS flags, which is insane.
Not to mention that you can go on Amazon and buy a hammer and sickle Russian flag, a North Korean bans.
Yeah, and that's what Steve and I had said. Yes, when he brought up the Amazon thing, I said, so do they sell German items? Do they sell Vietnamese items? We actually went to war with these countries as well.
That's right.
They seem to have gotten over those.
And my whole thing is that, flags are inanimate objects. They're not influencing people. People have certain values and beliefs instilled in them, and whether they choose to symbolize that through a flag or through some other piece of whatever that's inanimate, that object should not be the object of your attention and your either feelings of hatred or oppression or racism or anything else you're feeling. If that's the case, then I'm offended that anybody in this country would wave any flag that's not an American flag. So let's ban them all, unless it's the American flag, which will, in fact, be brought up as a symbol of racism as it was adopted by slave owners. Anybody? I mean, really, who approved the American flag?
Invariably, what part of the problem here is, and it's a tough one, is you can't talk about the flag. You can't talk about statues, street names, parks, schools, whatever else, without inviting a conversation around the Civil War. And unfortunately, one of the things that, I have found, and I think some of these are, that I could bring up are not topics that have to do with whether or not, the war was fought over slavery. I think anybody in any amount of honesty will admit that slavery was certainly a major aspect of why the South went to war. But the part that annoys me the most is the disinformation that's out there. Something as simple as why the flag was raised over the capital of the state of South Carolina in the first place. Why certain bases were named after Southern generals. Why certain statues have been raised in certain places, with regards to Southern generals and such. The disinformation about that sort of thing. Why is the flag sitting out in front of in South Carolina right now? Nobody even remembers 50 years ago why that flag is sitting out there. The NAACP certainly isn't showing up and going, oh, wait a minute, guys. Wait a minute before you get all huffy. That was a deal we made with the state. We agreed to that. Right? They're not showing up and doing that. So the disinformation is the part that probably annoys me the most about straight up facts. Forget the war, just straight up facts. The fact that Kennedy was actually involved in the celebration, or whatever you want to call it, remembrance, And a lot of what went on with that entire remembrance back in 1961 had to do with this sort of idea of reconciliation post, Reconstruction. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on there that people have forgotten now. Then they fall back on what they've been taught in school. And so instead of addressing the flag, we're back to addressing it only as a leap. Like all of a sudden, in 1865, the war was over. We raised the Confederate flag, got pissed off that nobody was slaves anymore, and it perpetuated this ever since. And that's not what happened.
No, it's not. Now, myself, let me go ahead and I'll lay my history out on the line here. I, with the exception of a couple of months of my very, very early life, I was born in California, moved to the South at the age of about 3 to 4 months old. And I have lived in the South my entire life, never any further north than Virginia or any further west than Mississippi. This flag has always been around. But racism is something that my family didn't believe in, first of all. Certainly, we may have seen some of it being multiracial, but all I was ever taught was you do what's right for you and yours, and you grab yourself by your own boots and you make your own way, and damn anybody that gets in your way. So the flag means absolutely nothing to me one way or the other. It's just something I've always been around. And I have seen people use it as a symbol of racism and hate, and I have seen it used as nothing but pure salute to heritage.
G, I completely agree with what you said. I can see all that. But the problem is that I'm looking at it as a white woman, and I think that my worldview, and I don't think we need to like kowtow to every particular situation where we think somebody may be offended. That's not what I'm saying. I'm simply saying that when you have a very large portion of Republicans that are not white saying, hey, we really find this flag offensive, right or wrong, up or down, whatever. When we look at it, perception is huge, right? It's a large part of how we perceive something and how we interpret it, right? So
it is.
I completely understand everything Steve said, and I honest to gosh can completely see where both of you are coming from, but I also can completely see where Black conservatives are saying, and people on the left are saying, this hurts us. We see it as this. We're sorry we don't see it as a national pride or a state pride issue. Instead, we see it as hurtful. So that's really my only. I think we just need to listen to them. And she didn't. There will still be a vote in the state of South Carolina.
Oh yeah.
The people can go on and state their cases. It could be just like Steve is extremely persuasive in having me completely understand. It was like a light switch, right? Because Laura Lee and I going back today discussing, how we were raised. It's kind of a light switch on wow. It's funny because I was raised that Lincoln was the hero, and my Aunt Faye, who is from the South, was raised that Sherman is the devil. So it's
yeah.
Yeah,
And I'll tell you something. Give you a 30-second spot here. I was up in Boston a few years ago, and I was doing the trail, the history thing up there or whatever, right? And Paul Revere and all that other fun stuff, right? I come around to Boston Commons and I see a statue of some, a soldier on a horse up on a hill. And, being from South Carolina, it's pretty much the only place I'd ever lived. And I went up the hill and I go up to see the statue of this big guy on this horse, and I come around to the bottom and I look around the other side and I'm like, I literally cringed for a minute. right? When I saw that it was Sherman, I was like, who the hell would put Sherman, on a statue in this place? And then I went, oh, yeah, that's right. I'm up north. Okay, to him, he's a hero. To us, he was the guy that, allowed his troops to rape women in Charlottesville, in Fredericksburg, and burnt his way through the South. There is perception there, but there's also, even for me, there was okay, I get it. They're, this is Boston. They're going to like the guy. And they're going to name a tank after him.
Well, yeah, you got all that, but let me throw this out there as a little bit of a devil's advocate, and I know it's not on the same level, but couldn't a middle-class white kid whose family makes about $2,500 a year too much to qualify for federal assistance to go to college see the United Negro College Fund in the same light that a black Republican could see this Confederate battle flag as an oppressive symbol?
You do realize I'm going to touch that with a
because
poll, right?
These kids are marginal students that maybe they don't get that scholarship offer, but there's this racially biased organization, and I don't want to call it bias. Bias is the wrong word. We'll call it a racially based organization to help young black folks go to college, which is not a bad thing. But what would happen if there was an organization for young white folks that fall into those categories?
There's been a bit of a double standard on that stuff for years, but we've had to sort of suck that up and go, well, okay, recognition of oppression in the past, civil rights violations, horrible things that happened, and therefore this is okay, and it would be wrong to set up a white person college fund, and I get that. I get it that people still. I mean, I remember as a kid there being separate waiting rooms for whites and blacks. Okay, I am old enough for that.
Ooh, sorry.
So I get the. But, it's a tough one. White people just aren't going to do it. They're going to go, oh, heck no. It's like I just said to you, won't touch that one with a 10-foot pole. We're not going to touch it. And I want to say one thing. And I was talking to a friend of mine earlier, and I said this to her. There is something that's not put out there, and it's something I think most people don't get and don't understand. We don't talk about slavery in the South, not that much. I mean, we address it. We know it's there. We know it happened. In the South, and I think almost to a 0.001% when you talk to white people. It's almost like a given. There is a shame associated with the fact that slavery took place. Okay? Now, we can recognize that it all took place underneath the American flag, right? The Stars and Stripes. Okay? It took place under the British flag. It took place under the Confederate flag. We recognize that. We know that. We know that happened. That doesn't necessarily dissuade us from also recognizing other factors. The problem is that we're not allowed to recognize the other factors. We only are kind of kept in this perpetual state of you need to feel shame, right?
Right.
I think that's why basically whites would never go, let's have a white college fund.
Well,
I
only
agree
ask
with that.
because
There's white guilt, don't you think? I'm sorry, G.
No, go ahead.
Don't you think there is a lot of white guilt? I completely agree. I think our younger generation, I think my son's age, my other son is 23, I think they don't have that white guilt. They see everybody as equal. I think that generation will be so much different in how they handle these things. They're so much more libertarian when it comes to certain things because they really don't have that attached guilt because they just think that happened in the past and they see people as equals. And I do think that the white guilt thing is destroying our country because just like you said, the bitterness that comes from some people looking around saying, I don't have health care, I don't have this, and we're giving immigrants this, we have specific scholarships, like you said, for individuals that are minorities, but not, like you said, the poor white kid. I think that's where I fell. My parents had a farm, had just enough land not to qualify for any benefits, but no money coming in, right? Because everything goes back into the land, right? And so I had to pay for my everything. That's why when people say you can't go to college, I always think, well, why can't you go to college? You just have to pay for it,
Yeah.
So, and boy, it took years to pay that off.
Yeah, it does. Well,
so anyway, I see that. I think you're right.
Okay. Well, guys, look, we're at the bottom of the hour, and I know you have a show to prep for that comes on in 90 minutes. Am I correct?
At 9 Eastern Standard Time. So
tell everybody where they can find it, because we're going to, what everybody doesn't know is that I'll be jumping over and be on your show a little later tonight, and we're going to continue this discussion.
You want to do it, Steve?
Okay, it's in 30 minutes, not 9.
Oh, it's in 30 minutes.
What's that? Yes.
Yeah, 9 Eastern.
Okay, 9 Eastern time. So in 30 minutes, your show starts, and it's called The Red Wine.
Yes, and we're on Spreaker. So you could go to Spreaker, the app, or Spreaker.com. Just type in AltCon Radio, and you can scroll through that, and you will find The Red Wine Show with Jody and Di.
And there you go, folks. And that starts in a half hour, and yours truly will be bringing the G Nation along, hopefully to bolster everything up. And we're going to continue this over there. Jody and Steve, I thank you so much for making the time to come on, and I look forward to talking with you guys again very shortly.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys. See you soon. Okay, and just like that, we're going to bust out to a commercial break here at the bottom of the hour. You are listening to the Conservative Curmudgeon Show on K98Talk.com. You stay put. We still got 30 more minutes to do of the left and how they are destroying what we consider truth, what we know to be truth. And we'll be back in about 2 minutes to talk about it. Good night.
You and me, ain't that America? Something to see, baby. Ain't that America? Home of the free, yeah.
Not on my watch, our military service members say, as they volunteer to serve, as they move out, stand firm, and take fire. So not on our watch, we say, to the severely ill or injured veterans who can't get the care they deserve to live full and independent lives, even when there's no government funding or a nursing home seems like the only option. We won't leave one warrior behind. Not on our watch. Join us at findwwp.org.
Red Nation Rising brings you Town Hall Radio.
From a single tweet to 3 million a month, our community is a force to be reckoned with on social media.
So don't miss our show, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on K98 Talk.
Our chat room is our co-host, and you ask the question.
Join us and be heard.
So get ready to sound off on Red Nation Rising Radio. No one else is going to do it for you.
Is a wild, wild whisper blowing in the wind, calling out my name like a long lost friend.
A show that will change internet radio as you know it.
Okay, so let's talk about the story, which I think is hilarious. I'm just going to refer to it as the poop plane because, like, what else are you going to call it? But there was this plane, okay? It took off. It's the British Airways. They were going to Dubai. I have a hard time pronouncing that one.
It was British
anyway,
Airways. It wasn't jet.
British
It wasn't jet poo.
It was.
Couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
I like it. This story,
BM
if
Airlines.
we've ever had a story that is up our alley, it's this one. It's bathroom humor up from front to back of the airplane, apparently. They had to turn around to go back to Heathrow because They said the smelly poo in the toilet became unbearable for passengers, and it was so bad. They decided it's so bad that they had to turn around and go back rather than continue their flight. They decided that there wasn't enough Febreze, there wasn't enough anything to handle this.
Maybe they should see a doctor. Is there a GoFundMe for this guy?
It must be a woman, because a woman's going to be mortified and embarrassed. If this is a guy, you know that he's like out there on Twitter and everything else saying, dude, I took down an airplane with how bad that I laid it down.
There was an
Not
old woman
girls,
who
girls.
flew on jet poo. She ate so many burritos she didn't know what to do.
So we turned the plane around because they made a big stink. We've just made it into a haiku at the end, but there had to be something.
Real Serious Nonsense, Mondays, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, now on K98 Talk.
Oh, but ain't that America? You and me. Ain't that America? Something to see, baby. Ain't that America?
All right, welcome back. You are live with the Grouch, the G Nation rolling strong on this Wednesday night. Want to remind everybody to make sure you tune in to K98, not just on Wednesday nights, but we have got great stuff every night. We have the Politainment group going on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights. You get Real Serious Nonsense and Stafford Voice on Mondays. You get the Right Angle on Tuesdays. You get ATM, According to Me, with Jason DeWilkins on Wednesdays. And every night you also get the Rowdy One, Rowdy Rick Robinson, doing America Off the Rails at 7 o'clock Eastern, Monday through Friday. You guys, we got Red Nation Radio on Thursdays. We've got Tuesday nights with JD and Stacy doing Tuesday and Thursday nights, and also again on Sundays. So you just can't go wrong. You need to just set your damn dial or your favorite button to K98 Talk and make sure you listen, because we've got more good stuff coming all the time. And it's all for you. Not for us, it's for you. Okay, so anyway, here we go. We have the left, the political left, the ideology of the left, the demagoguing of the left, whatever you want to call it. The left is destroying anything that is an absolute truth. Does it matter which set of sexual organs you were born with? Does it matter what skin color you were born with? Does it matter what truth is? Apparently, none of this really matters if you are of the liberal mindset. You see, the left is setting out not only to redefine many of the words we grew up being taught an absolute definition of, they're setting out to destroy the absolute truth of any and everything in favor of the so-called enlightened way of finding your own truth. Now, you may have noticed how many on the left have been busy with tirelessly redefining words like marriage and gender and sexuality and race, etc., etc., etc. This is all part of their plan to destroy everything we know to be true. Why would they want to do this, you ask? Well, it's not real hard. The thing is if they can destroy everything that's an absolute truth, then nothing means anything, and they can simply redefine everything as it fits their agenda as they go. So it doesn't matter if you were born with a penis or a vagina. You can just simply identify as a man or a woman that's opposite of what you were born with as far as reproductive organs. It doesn't matter. You know, if you have a penis, you can say, oh, I'm just going to be a woman from now on. It's okay. Caitlyn Jenner or Bruce Jenner did it, right? I mean, I can change my name too, right? What does it matter? urinate standing up at a trough. Hey, go right ahead. It's perfectly fine with the left. You can just be a man if you want to be badly enough. I wonder if Nancy Pelosi and Barbara Boxer and others of their ilk would be so open-minded if I started going into a woman's restroom on Capitol Hill and whipping out my pseudo vagina and urinating on the toilet seats. I wonder if that's what it would take for them to wake up. But even more dangerous than this is what we're opening the doors to here. And don't get me wrong, I don't think everybody that quote unquote identifies as a gender opposite of the sexual organs they were born with is a predator type person. As a matter of fact, I think very much the opposite. I think most of them are very otherwise normal people and would never do anything to hurt anybody else. But what we're doing is we are opening the door to perverts and to even worse, sex offenders. The children are who are really going to suffer in this, and we're going to touch on that a little more. Let's have it happen to the liberal types that are so adamant about how we can't offend these people by making them use the bathroom that matches the sexual organs that their DNA via God's creation gave them. Oh, hell no. That would make us intolerant and oppressive. You see, it's more than just their ideas they're expressing here. The POTUS, Barack Obama, has decreed by Executive Order 13672 that this must be allowed to happen. 13672 exists to, quote unquote, this is per the White House, prohibit federal contractors and subcontractors from discriminating on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. This means that all the bathrooms that have the little outlines of men on one door and women on the other doors will now include a half man, half woman outline. So people born with specific sexual organs will know that it's okay if you want to go into the other bathroom if you want to. Look, the last thing I want in the men's room is some chick who thinks she's a guy throwing her feminine products into the bowl and leaving them there. It's disgusting. And I don't want to see them when I'm throwing the paper towel in the trash can after washing and drying my hands. It's disgusting. They have to deal with it. I'm sorry they have to deal with it, but it's life. Unless you go to the hospital and have that plumbing turned off and have new plumbing installed, you're going to deal with that crap. It's part of the game. The same way that no normal, average, everyday woman wants guys walking into the ladies' restroom and taking a whiz all over the seats and leaving the seats up and doing God knows what else that sick freak men do in bathrooms, because I've walked into some bathrooms that were men's rooms, and by God, I don't know how any man could stand to use it. So if you're out there and you're one of those people, clean yourself the hell up and get normal, would you? These issues have seemingly taken to the forefront of our culture in recent months, thanks to our useless mainstream media outlets promoting them like it was the outbreak of World War II. I mean, really, have you ever heard so much fuss over somebody getting a set of breasts installed on a man's body? I mean, you would think that Bruce Jenner, and even before that, let's go back to the Chaz Bono thing. The media just lauded them with attention and how we have to accept them and we're bigots and racists or whatever the hell, genderists if we don't. Meanwhile, we do have some truly serious issues happening around the globe that have nothing to do with an allegedly warming climate or sexual identification that are being trivialized by an inept presidential administration. This administration has made issues of non-issues like these since its beginning. It's now, as its time is growing short, that they are just steamrolling into high gear and pushing this social justice, as they would call it, on the rest of the country. You know, the 96, 97% of people out there that understand that if you're born with a penis, you're a man, and if you're born with a vagina, you're a woman. No, to hell with you people. You have to bend over backwards and accept this small minority of people that are confused about how they feel about their sexuality. Yeah, see a damn therapist. I don't want to hear about it. And let me tell you something. As we roll closer and closer to the 2016 election, it's going to get worse. Our rights are going to be further eroded in the name of tolerance. Our rights are going to be further eroded in the name of safety. But mostly our rights will be further eroded because more and more people will begin to buy into the lies of the left as they destroy everything that you and I hold to be true and know to be true. They will destroy the truth to further their agenda, and you to fill in your own truth until, oh yeah, there is a breaking point, folks. It's not going to be a free gravy train forever. There's always a catch, especially with the left. You're going to be able to watch them. You will be able to watch them define their own truths until it's time for big government to seize control. After all, they can only allow you so much freedom to redefine truth. Once you outgrow their need, they're going to stifle you and find a way to reel you in, and they will once again start redefining things to put you in your place. It's not altogether unlike what the Nazi Party did in Europe. These liberals just do a much better job of putting a bow on a pig and making people believe that it's beautiful after all. Okay, so now we're going to move on. Remember, I talked about how I thought that children could put themselves or could be put in danger by this executive order that Obama has already signed. That's 13672, if you're keeping score at home. Here we got an Alabama state representative by the name of Mac Butler. He's a Republican from Rainbow City. And Representative Butler recently spoke out against the Obama administration for mandating federal contractors and buildings allow individuals to use these restrooms according to what gender they identify with instead of their biological or presented sex. So in a Facebook post Tuesday evening, Butler stated, and this is a quote, "This will set the tone for schools and public buildings across the nation," calling Obama's mandate the dumbest move ever. Representative Butler told Yellowhammer News Wednesday morning that he doesn't at all believe transgender individuals are predators, and I said the same thing, but that requiring gender-neutral bathrooms opens the door for predators to take advantage of citizens, particularly children. He went on to say, "We expect at a minimum government to promote public safety, and this move by the Obama administration is actually doing the opposite of that." This move by the Obama administration comes as part of Executive Order 13672, and we have a Department of Labor definition here. It exists to prohibit federal contractors and subcontractors from discriminating on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. The Department of Labor defines gender identity as the following: one's internal sense of one's own gender, adding that, quote, it may or may not correspond to the sex assigned to a person at birth and may or may not be made visible to others. What made visible? Do you need to see a penis so that you know I identify as a man? Or does it matter that I have a penis and want to identify as a woman? The Department of Labor has completely screwed this thing into the ground and has made it even cloudier than mud. But as Butler added on his Facebook post, he said, can you imagine, in high school, it would come to a basically co-ed locker room. You would just walk in there and say, today I was identifying as a girl, but tomorrow I'll be back identifying as a guy. There could be a situation where police are called and a man could say that he identifies as a woman and wants to be taken to a woman's facility instead of a regular jail. Butler also stated that he knows the West Coast has been pushing for gender neutral bathrooms for quite some time, and that if it came to Alabama, he feels certain the state legislature would do something to block it. And Butler concluded by saying, basically, I look at this move as endangering children and putting them at risk, and this is unacceptable. And Representative Mac Butler, I agree with you, sir. Congratulations for having the spine to stand up and say it. All right, so a lot of times, the truth does not show up conveniently when summoned. Most often, it must be pursued. It takes thought and research and more thought and conversation to approach an understanding of the truth. And even then, the truth can be elusive. Truth is even more difficult to nail down when there are loud voices in the world in control of the microphone, deliberately peddling falsehoods and lies that go largely unchallenged by the ignorant masses and by the media. All of this can be complicated by half-truths, little white lies, and the always troublesome and unavoidable ambiguities plaguing human existence. For example, somebody might say, Americans are likable. Now, for this person, that is truth. However, that truth rests on that person's experiences. That person likes the Americans that he or she has met and therefore concludes that Americans are likable. If that same person could meet all Americans and track those that they like and dislike, if the dislikes outnumber the likes, they would have to change this definition of truth and conclude that Americans are actually unlikable. However, this would not be a capital T truth, would it? It would still be that person's truth, a subjective conclusion based only on what their preferences and experiences are. Go to the next person and demand they conduct the same study. They might conclude Americans are likable. Or they might conclude Americans are a little different from others, a mix of likable and unlikable. It's still one person's subjective opinion, but likely one registering a bit closer to the truth than conclusions drawn by the former individual. The point is all people are fallible. We are driven by emotion, preferences, biases, experience, and subjectivity. In the human realm, there is no such thing as hardcore objective analysis. Even our science is corrupt. Yes, we can travel in space and rebuild a human heart. We can do all kinds of manner of things. But have we achieved any more understanding of the nature of love down through the centuries? One of the most glaring examples of human fallibility in the present day involves the argument over global warming, something that the left has now reissued as climate change. Many of us who are tired of hearing of their flawed science just call it weather. But most of those controlling the microphones insist that man-made global warming is an established truth and that the debate is over and the science is settled. Never mind that 31,000 scientists signed a contradictory statement not long ago. Ignore the fact that global warming alarmists fudged the data and conspired to perpetuate a hoax. Throw all that out the window. Those in possession of truth need not resort to fraud. Those who deceive, arguing with manufactured facts, have no case. Believe only those with the microphone? Accept an unproven truth? Submit to the will of those with an agenda, maybe. Let's agree it would be gullible and ill-advised to surrender in that kind of manner. Complying with the purpose of all this rancor and artificial crisis, the creation of a global system for the transfer of cash from developed nations to the third world. Forcing man-made global warming as settled science is pushing an unproven theory to drive the uninformed to advance a so-called altruistic goal promoted to conceal the real agenda. International theft orchestrated by a global governing body. Folks, you know me, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but this is happening. There are those who rightly fear global government and with taxing authority to take all you have for no other reason than it can. So often, fallible, emotional beings possessing above average intelligence appear incapable of determining truth. According to some, the best and brightest, after years of work, gave us Obamacare. Oh, look how that's working out for us. The efforts are feeble at best, prompting somebody like, Pontius Pilate to ask the most pertinent and perennial question, what is truth? For many decades, a certain message was preached. It claims to be the truth, allowing an assumption of the moral high ground. This message suggests Americans should feel guilty for being successful. It's a message that Barack Obama has exploited in order to realize wild success, both financial and political. Ironic, isn't it? The chief critic of American success profited enormously from the successful system he condemns. The message asserts the following: Americans are greedy, racist, selfish, prideful, dominated by crass consumerism, and addicted to conspicuous consumption. American exceptionalism is a myth, an excuse for nationalism, a myth accommodating imperialism, global exploitation, and self-indulgence. Corporate greed is our original sin, a lust for personal pleasure and material wealth. Americans are awash in an orgy of hedonism financed by the essential unfairness and exploitative nature of capitalism. This is the problem. It is said day in and day out on most of the major networks, on the pages of most of major publications, and through hundreds of thousands of websites worldwide. The capitalists are pigs and America is the largest sty. Industrialization in the developed world, creating all this wealth, is polluting and warming the planet. And so people in the developed world must minimize their carbon contributions and essentially pay reparations to the third world, or so the argument goes. Otherwise, humanity faces extinction. The left gets 2 for 1 with these arguments. It condemns capitalism on the one hand, while posturing to care more about humanity and the planet than anyone else. What's the truth? No matter who's making an argument, we must always ask that very question. What is the truth? Obviously, the debate over man-made global warming is not over. It's not settled. The massive divisions within the scientific community demonstrate there is no final conclusion, and therefore no one really knows if the Earth is warming or if human activity is the chief contributor. That is the fairest thing one can say. However, some 25,000 to 90,000 years ago, most of North America, including the northern part of the United States and New England, were covered by an ice sheet. I believe it was the Laurentine or something along that line ice sheet that was between 1 and 2 miles thick. And this was 25,000 to 90,000 years ago. And something melted this sheet of ice, and it damn sure wasn't the Republicans and their confounded SUVs, folks. So what the hell's going on here? Opposing armies of scientists have not settled this question, but it remains troubling to find lead scientists in Great Britain and America conspiring not long ago to present doctored research, emailing those findings worldwide and claiming to end the debate. It's also very troubling hearing from people like Dr. Lawrence Turkello at the Rochester Institute of Technology. He wants government to jail people who deny man-made global warming is a serious problem. Another instance of the thought police not only controlling the microphone, but working to criminalize any dissent. Now, folks, we're at the top of the hour, and I have a little more to do, and I understand that ATM show, according to me, is going to be a replay tonight, so I'm going to indulge a couple more minutes of your time if you bear with me. As I mentioned at the very start of my show, I am paying tribute to my friend Sam, who I support intently and intensely, as you will notice by my Twitter AVI. And this week, I'm going to do a little spin on what Sam usually does on her show. She does her douchebags of the week. I'm going to give you my singular douchebag of the week and give you the top 10 reasons why he's my douchebag of the week. So my douchebag this week is George Soros, not a stranger to anybody's douchebag list. And here are the top 10 reasons why George Soros deserves to be the douchebag of the week. Number 1, he gives billions to left-wing causes. Soros started the Open Society Institute in 1993 as a way to spread his wealth to progressive causes. Using Open Society as a conduit, Soros has given more than $7 billion to a who's who of left-wing groups. A partial list of recipients of Soros's money says really all you need to know. Acorn, Apollo Alliance, National Council of La Raza, Tides Foundation, Huffington Post, Southern Poverty Law Center, Sojourners, People for the American Way, who really aren't, Planned Parenthood, and the National Organization of Women. Reason number 2, influence on U.S. elections. Soros once said that removing President George W. Bush from office in 2004 was, quote, the central focus of his life. He put his money where his mouth is, giving $23.5 million to various 527 groups dedicated to defeating Bush. His early financial support helped jumpstart Barack Obama's political career. Soros hosted a 2004 fundraiser for Obama when he was running for the Illinois Senate and gave the maximum allowed contribution within hours of Obama's announcement that he was running for president. Reason number 3, he wants to curtail American sovereignty. Soros would love nothing better than for America to become subservient to international governing bodies. He wants more power for groups such as the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, even while saying the U.S. role in the IMF should be downsized. In 1998, he wrote, "Insofar as there are collective interests that transcend state boundaries, the sovereignty of states must be subordinated to international law and international institutions." What a sweet guy. Reason number 4, Soros is a financial backer of Media Matters for America, a progressive media watchdog group that hyperventilates over any conservative view that makes it to the mainstream media. Now, its founder, David Brock, has openly declared war on Fox News, telling Politico that group was mounting guerrilla warfare and sabotage against the cable news channel and would try to disrupt the commercial interests of owner Rupert Murdoch. An odd mission for a 501c3 tax-exempt educational foundation that is barred from participating in partisan political activity, wouldn't you say? Next up, number 5, MoveOn.org. Soros has been a major funder of MoveOn.org, a progressive advocacy group and political action committee that raises millions for liberal candidates. This is the group that had on its website an ad comparing President George W. Bush to Adolf Hitler and ran the infamous General Betray Us ad in the New York Times disparaging David Petraeus. Next up, number 6, Center for American Progress, formerly headed by John Podesta, White House Chief of Staff, under President Clinton. The Center for American Progress has been instrumental in providing progressive talking points and policy positions for the Obama administration, who Podesta now works for. There has also been a revolving door between the White House and the Soros-funded think tank, with Obama staffing his administration with many CAP officials. Reason number 7, environmental extremism. Former Obama green jobs czar Van Jones, not to mention moron in general, and his leftist environmental ideas have been funded by Soros's money at these groups: the Ella Baker Center, Green for All, the Center for American Progress, and the Apollo Alliance, which is instrumental in getting 110 billion in green initiatives included in Obama's stimulus package. Soros also funds the Climate Policy Initiative to address global warming and gave Friends of the Earth money to integrate a climate equity perspective in the presidential transition, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. Reason number 8, Soros is the douchebag of the week. America coming together. Soros gave nearly $20 million to this 527 group with the express purpose of defeating President Bush. A massive get-out-the-vote effort, ACT's door-to-door canvassing teams included numerous felons. Its voter registration drives were riddled with fraud. It handed out incendiary flyers and made misleading tape phone calls to voters. ACT was eventually fined $775,000 by the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission, for violations of various federal campaign finance laws, but that was after the election. Amazing what billions can do for you. Reason number 9, currency manipulation around the world. A large part of Soros's multi-billion-dollar fortune has come from manipulating currencies. During the 1997 Asian financial crisis, Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad accused him of bringing down the nation's currency through his trading activities. And in Thailand, he became known as the economic war criminal. Known as the man who broke the Bank of England, Soros initiated a British financial crisis by dumping 10 billion sterling, forcing the devaluation of the currency and gaining a billion-dollar profit. And last but not least, and possibly the most dangerous reason that Soros made the list, are his delusions of self-grandeur. He has repeatedly said that he sees himself as a messianic figure. Who but a megalomaniac would make such comments? He said, "I admit that I have always harbored an exaggerated view of my self-importance. To put it bluntly, I fancied myself as some kind of god, or I carried some rather potent messianic fantasies with me from childhood, which I felt I had to control, otherwise I might end up in the loony bin." Well, hey, guess what, George? If the loony bin were an option, that's where you should be. As it is, one of the wealthiest men in the world is using his billions to impose a radical agenda on America and its people, helping to destroy further anything that is an absolute truth. Folks, it's 10 after, and I've got to get moving. I am going to be on the red wine with Jody and Diane and Steve. Give us a holler, give us a listen. Go to Spreaker.com. You can search for AltCon and find that show there. I will be there in just a few minutes. And I look forward to seeing you back here next Wednesday night as we grow and teach from the G Nation. Folks, this is your Grouch. I'm out. God bless.
No, you can't.